Elden Ring symbolizes one thing above all else: change. It tells a story of intrigue, of bloody wars veiled beneath the blinding glow of gold. It sends us on a journey through different ages, and speaks of civilizations that fell, only to become the fertile ground for those that followed. And so, over time, new civilizations rose in the lands between atop the remnants of the old. Architecture blended, histories blurred, and the stories of entire peoples became distorted, or nearly lost altogether. Today, we turn our attention to those very civilizations, swallowed by the passage of time and almost completely erased from the vast reaches of the lands between. Our journey begins with a young woman who gazed at the sky as she walked. The young astrologer gazed at the night sky as she walked. She had always chased the stars every step of her journey. Then she met the full moon, and in time, the astrologer became a queen. These are the words of the Stargazer heirloom. The woman spoken of is quite clearly Queen Rennala of the Carian royal family. But what's truly interesting is what this tells us about her origins. She is described not as a sorceress, but as an astrologer, and this is no coincidence. The astrologer hood tells us that the glintstone sorcerers of the Academy were the heirs of the astrologers, which implies that Lady Rennala herself was once among them. We learn of Sorcerer Azur, who pursued the mysteries of comets, and of Sorcerer Lusat, whose followers continued his studies of meteorites. It comes as little surprise, then, that throughout the Academy of Raya Lucaria, we find many forms of sorcery inspired by the objects of the night sky. Among these are the so-called gravity or meteor sorceries. The spell Meteorite describes itself as one of the glintstone sorceries that manipulates gravitational forces, and meteorites play a crucial role in the lore surrounding Farum Azula. From the battle with Dragonlord Placidusax, we learn that Farum Azula was once a vast mausoleum, destroyed, and later rebuilt into the drifting ruin we know today. The ruin's greatsword tells us, the ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite, a clear indication that Farum Azula's original form began to collapse after being struck from the heavens. From this, we can infer that the Farum Azula we explore today was built by a different culture, one that came after the dragons. A striking parallel to our own history, where primordial beings were wiped out by meteor impacts, and new civilizations arose upon their remains. The meteorite theory also explains why Farum Azula floats in the sky. Across the lands between, we find smaller meteor impact sites, and in each of them, the shattered Earth hangs suspended in midair. This aligns perfectly with meteor sorceries, which are closely tied to gravitational magic. The idea that Farum Azula was once grounded is therefore not far-fetched at all, especially when we consider the striking architectural similarities between Farum Azula and the bestial sanctum in Caelid. Even the bridge leading there bears the name, Farum Great Bridge. So who rebuilt Farum Azula after the destruction of its mausoleum? The answer begins to emerge when we look at the mysterious statue of a kneeling woman surrounded by 3 wolves. The wolf crest shield tells us, the wolf is the beast of the Carian royal covenant, a symbol of the moon's pride that none can forget, no matter what remote lands they may arrive in. These words don't just reveal the statue's origin, they tie Farum Azula directly to the ancestors of the Carians, the astrologers. The Carian family's bond with wolves is made unmistakably clear throughout the game. Ranni grants us a spirit ash that summons 3 wolves, the very same kind of summon Rennala uses against us in battle. Even King Consort Radagon once fought alongside a red wolf, and Ranni's own shadow is a wolf. The message is clear: wolves are the symbol of the Carian royal line, and this symbolism runs deeper still. The Carians appear to follow a belief system centered on the night sky, with the full moon as its central divine body. And as we know, wolves are drawn to the moon, howling to it, bound to it. The pieces fit together almost too perfectly. A group of astrologers studies the heavens, then witnesses a celestial body strike a vast mausoleum, reducing it to ruin. Driven by their thirst for knowledge, they journey to this crumbling site and build a new culture atop it. They leave behind their mark, the wolf statue in Malekith's arena, and another statue depicting a king, a queen, and an infant, also found within Raya Lucaria. And one day, they move on, leaving Farum Azula to the Beastmen, only to later become entangled in the 2 Liurnian wars, against a golden enemy whose ancestors have almost entirely vanished from history itself.
fallen leaves tell a story of how a tarnished became Elden Lord in our home across the fog, the lands between.
These words are spoken at the end of the age of the Erdtree, a symbol of both beginning and end. They underline the Erdtree's meaning across the many ages of the lands between. And just as the Gold Road once marked the beginning of something new, it ultimately leads us here, to a statue that appears unremarkable at first glance. It depicts a monk, his gaze lifted toward the heavens. He does not seem forced into sacrifice, but rather embraces it through his own will and unwavering resolve. Branches rise from the soil and slowly begin to entwine his body, draining his life force, so that from something fleeting, an eternally growing tree may be born. This is why I refer to this people as the tree growers. Statues of tree growers can be found elsewhere as well, in Stormvale and even within the Round Table Hold. Across the lands between, they appear in two primary forms, two stages of growth. In the first, we see the tree grower lifting a sapling toward the sky. The meaning mirrors our own world. Young trees are often bound to a stake until their trunks grow strong enough to stand upright on their own. I believe the same principle applies here. In the second, more advanced stage, the tree has begun to envelop the tree grower entirely. This suggests a process that takes immense time and profound devotion. It seems the purpose of this people was to nurture trees through the sacrifice of their own lives. And the idea of living beings becoming trees is widespread throughout Elden Ring. In the Guardians of the Minor Erdtrees, we see small trees growing from their backs. They are rooted into the earth itself, as though they have become the roots, feeding life to the tree above. Their masks tell us that these guardians entered a pact with the Erdtree, and that death for them did not mean destruction, but eternal life as its protectors. Another detail is particularly striking. The blossoms carved into the trees on these statues closely resemble the blossoms depicted on Radagon's icon. And this resemblance grows even stronger when we consider the statue of Radagon found in Leyndell. The match feels almost perfect, and I believe that is no coincidence. Muriel tells us of Radagon.
Lord Radagon was a great champion, possessed of flowing red locks. He came to these lands at the head of a great golden host, when he met Lady Renala in battle.
At first glance, this seems to describe the Golden Order. But what if it refers to something else, something far older, a different Golden Order altogether, one led by Radagon himself, entering the lands between, spreading life through a ritual that birthed minor Erdtrees across the land? Was King Radagon once at the head of the tree growers? And could they be the true predecessors of the Golden Order? The connections align almost too well. Radagon is tied to the Carians. The Carians, in turn, are tied to Elden John, a figure deeply connected to the tree growers. His statues appear as though he is rooting himself into the earth, and at the four belfries, we see him depicted in the very same sacrificial ritual as the tree growers. When we consider that the Erdleaf flower, fallen blossoms of the Erdtree turned into flowers, can only be found along the Gold Road and at the four belfries, where Elden John is depicted, one final question emerges. Is this the key to the Erdtree's origin? The tree growers becoming minor Erdtrees, and Elden John, through their ritual of sacrifice, becoming the Erdtree itself? Elden Ring's map itself depicts a people who seem to be leaving the lands between by ship. Even this small detail finds its echo within the game's lore. The leather crown speaks of fearless warriors, renowned for hunting bears, for there is no act more glorious than the subjugation of a savage beast. The gloried attire also tells us of these fearsome bear hunters, traditional garb of Highland warriors, made from woven fabric and finished with fur. This garment is made from fabrics with both blue and red patterns. Red patterned fabrics were allowed only to those who hunted bears, the greatest and most glorious of the Highlanders. The most infamous of these Highlanders was likely Lord Godfrey himself, or rather, Hoarah-Lû. There are several clues that point to this. The Highland axe can be looted directly beneath his portrait, and its description reads, "Single-sided axe used by the warriors of the Highlands. Brave combatants begin battle by crying out their names. Roars are enhanced by this weapon." What a coincidence! Horalu bellows his own name as he charges us in battle.
Fight as Horalu.
His roars, in fact, closely resemble the roar of Rugalia. It feels like a remnant of a much older time, when Horalu still hunted bears, as was tradition among his people. The Highlanders' weapon of choice was the axe, just like Godfrey's. So it's no surprise that the axe talisman depicts a warrior wearing the leather crown, accompanied by these words. The lord who led the long march bore an axe, and his loyal warriors honored him by wielding axes of their own, making them very effective at dealing decisive blows. It feels as though the Long March refers to the journey of the Highlanders, the voyage that brought them into the lands between. One can almost imagine them as a Viking-like people, sailing the world by ship before settling upon these shores. Fittingly, the rusted anchor tells us, while the tarnished left the lands between with their lord, one boat alone was said to have been left behind. At some point then, they left the lands between once more, and we are told of this exile directly.
My lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
The Highlanders, together with Godfrey, were banished after fulfilling their purpose, which leads us to a final question. What became of them afterward? And to that, there are two possible answers. When we take a closer look at Mesmer's soldiers, one detail immediately stands out. Their helmets bear a striking resemblance to the leather crown. And beyond that, their fighting style feels unmistakably familiar, eerily similar to that of Godfrey himself. They roar, they stomp, and they wield axes. It feels as though they were once part of Godfrey's own army, and the narrative fits almost too well. Warriors cast out, forced to leave the lands between, only to later wage a brutal crusade in the shadows of a veiled realm. The second possibility is revealed by the champion's pauldron. Pauldron reserved for the Badlands' bravest, proof that the wearer has slaughtered countless foes. Following the example of their chieftain Horalu, the brave warriors of the Badlands shun excess adornment. This speaks of the warriors who followed Horalu into the Badlands, likely those who departed by ship, the ones who did not become part of Mesmer's forces. And so our steps come to rest, where history never truly dies. For in the lands between, nothing fades without a trace. Every ruin is a promise, every statue an echo, every fallen tree, proof that from sacrifice, new life is born. The astrologers gazed toward the stars, and left behind fragments of crumbling stone. The tree growers gave their flesh to the soil, and shaped eternity from impermanence. The Highlanders roared their names into the world, and became legends, remembered only through whispered tales. Elden Ring is not a story of victors, it is a story of cycles, of peoples who rise, who fade, and yet shape the future without ever living to see it. Perhaps it is not the gods who truly guide this world. Perhaps it is those whose names have long been forgotten, whose paths we still tread. For as the fallen leaves whisper, every ending is merely the soil for a new beginning. And somewhere, between roots, stars, and ash, the next age already waits to be told.